Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. So as a continuation from last week when we talked about the total focus model, today I want to help you understand a little bit about the how. So I really gave you the framework and the structure of it and what it means, but I really want you to think a little bit more about how do you put that into place and what do I really do with it? So you remember I was talking about Erica, and as we were having that continued conversation, she goes, okay, I get what you're talking about. So now what do I do? So it was really important for us to really think about what does that mean when you think about all of those components getting put to use. So let's start back to the talent circle. You know, when we think about talent, again, finding a way, some of us know our natural talents and we say, oh, I'm responsible and I'm hardworking. And yes, those are many of our talents, but it's really taking that talent and being able to voice in a little different way how you do things. So that's where I find assessments helpful because they can help you give the words and the behaviors to what we do. Again, because we're so close to ourselves, we don't always know how to explain that. It's like, that's just what I do. But ask some close friends, ask them for your people who work with you to help them, help you confirm what you're really good at, as well as look at those assessments and say, what are some patterns? If I've taken 2 or 3 different assessments, what are some patterns that I see that always come up for me that I could really take and think about how could I weave that into the introduction of my resume. So if you look at your resume, remember we talked about skills, right? So that's usually pretty easy for people to talk about the skills that they bring, the programs that they know, the systems that they know how to use. Those are those skills. Knowledge, obviously we put our education and any certifications on our resume. Experience is pretty easy with the work that we've done. Be very explicit with the experience because you do need to talk about some of the outcomes that you've truly created. And of course, that values piece, sometimes that values piece isn't on your resume as much as it's spoken when you have the opportunity to have the interview, or you might weave some of the values into your cover letter if you're doing some of the introductions to yourself. But let's go back to that talent. So when we look at that talent, that first paragraph of your resume really should weave in, a lot of times people say what they're looking for. I'm looking for this, 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 and this, or this is what I could bring to the table. I really want you to think about using behaviors to explain. So I had met with someone the other day who's been in the business for a long time, and he was in strategic planning. And he was really experienced, had lots of great big companies he worked with, and he's kind of on that next step to look. And I said, gosh, you've had lots of experience. He showed me his resume, awesome resume, great experience. But I said, how do you go about this? What makes you unique and special? And he's like, well, I don't know. This is just what I do. Well, I looked at his strengths because I had a Strengths Finder report, and I was listening to him. And it was just very simple for me to see how he did it. He was able to really walk in and ask great questions. He digs deep, but they're pointed, correct questions because of his talent. And then he takes all that. He understands what the client needs very clearly because he has this talent to really pick out the uniqueness of the individuals, and he pulls them together. And so he's like, wow, that is what I do. But he hadn't ever been able to express what that looked like and how that shows up in a resume or in an interview even. He just kind of talked about it. This is what I do. So those are the things that we need to make unique, because if somebody's looking at that from the other edge of the table, those are the things they're wanting to know. How did you go about that? How do you build relationships? How do you get things done? How do you think? And that's really where you can emphasize that in the first paragraph of your resume. So I'd recommend that when you go about that process. Also, that helps you when you're going through that preparation. It also helps you be able to prepare for those conversations in the interviews or in networking meetings that you might be having. Now, the next piece I think is critically important is fit. Sometimes when we have a wide array of options to say, I want to look for something different, where do I start? I've been thinking about this with my son who's graduated from college and thinking about his options and who he wants to work with. He really has to take that fit piece and start defining it for him. So any of us who are really thinking about what does that fit mean, I suggest you take a piece of paper, really 4 pieces of paper, and put what I want and what I don't want. Put a column right down the middle and say, these are the things I want and these are the things I don't want. So when we're thinking about the role, what are the things that you really want to do? What are the things you love to do? How do you want to spend your time? Do you love spending time with people? Do you love spending time doing analytics? Do you love spending time creating? I like to do spreadsheets. I like to do whatever it might be. The other thing is I want to work 8 to 5. I want to be able to leave when my work is done. I want flexibility. I want travel. I want whatever it might be. Think of where you're spending your time, what you're doing all day, and define what do I want and what don't I want. Because a lot of times that mulls up in our head, but we need to be very clear. And until we really put it down on paper and get intentional about what we want to create for our role, it's usually unclear. And this is no different than us thinking about picking a mate. When you say, what do I want, what I don't want? At the end of the day, you get to choose, but you need to have a criteria to choose from. So sometimes we emotionally get excited about something. Oh, I love this job. And then you might like the people there, but then you go, I don't know, the work really isn't what I want to do. So this gives us a criteria to step aside and put aside to match to what that role might be. Second, you want to think about that company then. What is the criteria? What kind of company do you want to work for? Maybe you've had great companies you work for in the past, or maybe you've had some challenging companies and you say, I really like the big companies, or you know what, I really like the smaller startups, or I like the intimacy around a group of 30 people versus 350 people in my work group. Whatever it might be, that's your decision. You need to choose what is the fit for the company. What is their values? What are their mission? Call people who've worked for there. Check on LinkedIn. See their experiences. But first, you have to define what you want for you in that company. And if you don't know, because you haven't tried a lot besides one company, you just have to really look at your values and say, what's important to me and what do I believe in? Because those of you with strong values will know that if I don't believe in it, or I don't believe in how people are treated or the leadership, it won't align with who I am. Third is then a fit for the manager. Again, we've all had great managers. There's not a lot of managers who love to manage. So some of us have been challenged with, say, what even is a great manager? But I think you have to define for you what your expectations are, at least the basic expectations. Do I want somebody to teach me? Do I want somebody who's a mentor? Do I want somebody to leave me alone? Whatever that is for you, I would define that. Because when you're interviewing, as much as you're interviewing for them for the job, you need to be interviewing them or they're interviewing you for the job, you need to be interviewing them to say, gosh, am I going to like working with this person side by side? And can they give me what I need? So I think that's important. And then finally, a fit for the team. Now, I'm really surprised how many people don't meet team members that they're going to be working with when they're starting their job. You have the right to do that. Now, you might think, oh, I've never thought about that, or is that too much to ask? No, it's never too much to ask. Because if you're going to spend time with people, you want to make sure that they are people you want to be with. Or you can say, okay, now I can see kind of how I would fit within this group. So define, you've got to have people who, most companies want to collaborate and they want to build trust and those types of things. So it's really important for you to say, I want a great team. I want to be more of an individual performer and I'm going to be part of a team, but what does that team look like for me? So I think it's really important for us to think about that team fit as well. So when we think about fit is a feeling. So looking at all four of those fits, remember, a fit for the role, a fit for the company, a fit for the manager, and fit for the team. You need to really define what you're looking for on both sides. Now, that leads us to the criteria then. So then you decide what I want to start doing to think about looking for maybe something else. If we define that, that makes it clearer. So when we're talking to people, we're a little bit clearer on what we're looking for. Now, some people will say, well, am I too clear? Because I might be passing up opportunities. Most of the time, if you're passing up opportunities, they're probably not going to be a fit for you anyway, because you're really defining what's a good fit for you. Because if you're trying to not be a fit, you show up in that environment and guess what? It's not going to last long. So take some time to think about that as you define your list. And then when you have opportunities, now you have a criteria. Again, you have a criteria that is aligning you to what you're thinking about for that potential role. So for Positive Charge this week, gosh, I've given you a lot of activity to do. So I think you have lots of actions on the how. So first, take that list, take each of the four fit criterias, and think about fit for the manager, fit for the role, fit for the team, fit for the organization, and think about what are the things you want and don't want. And two, look at your resume and make sure that you have an opportunity to kind of define who you are within your resume so people really have a sense of you. Those opportunities are out there for all of us, and we have the opportunity to really think about what we want our life to be. So really, when you can define it and really get clear on your truth and who you are, the most success will be when there is alignment between you and the organization that you're seeking, that manager that you're seeking, that role that you're seeking. It's your chance to do that. So take some time this week to think about you and really what you can bring and how you can live your truth. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.